Hello, and welcome to At All Hours. I'm your host, Greg Ramirez, and this is episode number 1. Pretty crazy to be starting a new podcast, coming back. If any of you have followed me or already know, or if you're a friend of mine, you probably already know I'm not new to podcasting or doing any of this. I had my YouTube channel and stuff, Flamingo Pink, where I had a couple podcasts in the past, and they were fun. I really liked them. That's kind of why I'm back doing this. I wanted to kind of give an introductory episode and just kind of talk a little bit about why I'm back doing it again. Because before I had the Sunset Hotel, which I did with my friend Noel, and I did the drive-by with my friend Oscar, and they were really fun, but there was a big focus on the video aspect of it too, there, because it was all on YouTube. It's still there, but there was a big focus on the video aspect of it, and it was fun. It was really cool, but it was just a lot harder to try to get done. And once we stopped doing videos, I just wanted to go back to doing podcasts, which is why I wanted to give a little bit of kind of backstory to why I'm doing At All Hours and where the name came from. Because a long time ago, I wanted to do a podcast. I really like having conversations with people and meeting people and just kind of getting stories from people. If any of you know me, I really love telling stories, and I have a lot of just weird stories to tell. So I like meeting people and hearing their stories and anything significant that they have to say and anything they want to share. But a long time ago, I wanted to do something where I actually would go around, which is something I would do anyway, which is just kind of go around and talk to people, but actually record them and interview them. I have a big interest in just kind of bar culture and just kind of going to bars, talking to people, meeting people, and gathering stories. So I had this idea of getting kind of a mobile podcast setup, going around and just talking to people, asking them if they would be interested in sharing a story. And that was the original idea. This was also pre-COVID. So when COVID happened, it kind of fucked everything up. And it was just an idea that's always been kind of lingering in the back of my head. So I wanted to do something where I was able to sit on my own and just kind of talk, do whatever, which is going to be most of these episodes, just kind of sitting, talking, whatever thoughts I have, and at the same time having people on that I think are interesting or good friends of mine. Less just approaching strangers in the wild. Because once COVID happened, it was there was a lot of just doubt about doing anything like that. So I just didn't approach it, and it was whatever, who cares? And then I also found out about shows All Gas, No Breaks, things like that, and I was just it's already kind of been done, and it's probably better than what I could do. So I just kind of got discouraged, didn't really care. And then now it was more well, I don't have to do that. I could just talk to myself, which I usually do. I'm sure everyone does that. Just sit and talk to yourself. So I figured I'd at least record any sort of nervous breakdowns or episodes like this. That was pretty much the backstory behind At All Hours and kind of the intent of wanting to do something like this, just to be able to sit down and get into podcasting again. I thought it'd be fun. Now it brings us here. Brings us back to podcasting, back to making content, and also brings us to our first topic of our very first episode. Cannibalism. Can't live with it. Can't live without it. I have some pretty opinionated thoughts on cannibalism. I think it gets a bad rap, for one. I think that I think people think very small-mindedly of cannibalism. I think that not only is it like a solution to some things, which I will get into. Don't worry, okay? I will. I have, well, I looked at the time, like to see how much time I have. You're here till I say you can leave. So, cannibalism has been around for a long time, I think. Like a probably forever. That's something also I want to preface this. I did no research into any of this, into any of what I'm going to say. That's probably something I can preface the entire podcast on, which is just that I'm probably not going to research anything. I will talk out of my ass and say whatever I think confidently. So cannibalism's been around for a long time, and can't be that bad, right? First point, it's been around for a while. I think it's like at this point, if it was bad completely, we would have figured it out. Well, I guess that's not true, because then like slavery was around for a long time, and that's like not cool, I guess. So anyway, whatever. I'm not talking about slavery today. I'm talking about cannibalism, okay? So the thing is, I think that there's not a lot of research that's gone into the. I think one of the things is, obviously socially it's unacceptable, right? I get that. I think we can all agree on that. But I think the reason it's socially unacceptable is because we all think it's unacceptable, right? It's like you can't eat someone because we all think it's weird. Or because it's like one of us. Animals don't really do that either. Some animals, other animals, they, indulge in cannibalism. But it's usually out of necessity. It's like animalistically, we don't really do that. No animals really do that. Because I think every time it's happened, it's either out of necessity or because someone's just crazy, or it's like a ritualistic thing, right? It's like there's still tribes that practice cannibalism. If they're still around, they're probably, it's probably fine. So it's a big deal. I think one of the things that I think for sure is that there's not enough research in it. I don't think people or want to do that. But going into it, imagine the first people that ate chicken, right? They I don't know, discovered chickens or saw them, whatever. They found chickens, and then they're like, okay, well, we can eat this, or I'm going to eat it. And they eat it, and they get sick, right? They probably eat pork, pigs, and they're like, oh, I get sick every time I eat it. Or they eat certain animals, right? They probably, obviously, over time, you develop, whatever, stomachs and shit. Or not develop stomachs, but you develop, like, certain things, and we advance and whatever. So even now, if we eat chicken, you can't eat chicken raw. That's what I'm saying, right? You can eat beef raw. You can eat fish raw. Fishes, if that's your prerogative. Which, I mean, first of all, let's just also let's deviate from the path for now. If someone says, because I'm pretty sure the plural of fish is fish, which is stupid, but I think it's correct. If someone says it wrong or says fishes, how could someone correct that? Like, how do you stop? Like, you're like, hold on, it's actually fishes. Did you know that? Like, unless I'm trying to be a jerk because I hate you, or it's funny, which I guess it's kind of hard to tell for you, but it doesn't matter to me. Like, you're not going to I mean, it's different if you're like, or even if someone's like, oh, I got this new house and renovating it, and we found a bunch of mouses. under the house and you're kind of like, mice? Is that what you mean? Like, I get it. It's just kind of like, what are you doing? Who's that for? Anyway. So back to chicken. If you eat chicken raw, you're going to get sick. Get a little thing called salmonella. Okay? Not fun. Not a fun thing to experience from what I know. But if you cook chicken correctly, because you can also cook it and it still give you salmonella. Salmonella, I think is how it's correctly, the Latin pronunciation. So if you eat it raw, it's going to get you sick. You can eat pork raw and it'll get you sick. You can eat beef, some cuts of beef, and it'll kind of get you sick, or fish, it'll get you sick, right? So that's the thing. You have to prepare it a certain way and it'll be edible. Or it's like even like salmon or tuna, right? You get salmon or tuna. Those are like the two that people think of, or at least I do, when you think of like sushi, like raw fish. Think of like salmon and tuna. Those are like the most common ones, right? I think. Sushi experts, prove me wrong. Sushi consumers, prove me wrong. I don't know. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Beef steak tartare, right? I never had it, but I've heard good things. But you can eat those, but there's a certain way to prepare it. Either is like a certain grade, from what I understand. Like I said, I didn't do any research. Because whatever, I'm not a nerd. But if there is a certain grade, it can be served raw. Or if it's not like at that grade level, like where it can't just be served raw, it has to be prepared in a certain way in order to be able to be consumed raw, I believe. Again, don't quote me on that. Like, don't just be like, oh, well, fuck it. He said I could just throw it in some vinegar and water. I'm sure it'll be fine. I could just eat it. But I'm pretty sure you just have to prep it a certain way, and it's considered like you can eat it raw, basically raw. But like chicken, you can't do that. Pork, I don't think you can do that. Last time I checked. And even with beef, it's like, yeah, it has to be like done a certain way, right? This isn't a cooking podcast, by the way. This is just giving some context. So if you get someone through legal means, right? Because this is I think where the like blurred lines kind of come from, which is also something I didn't think about in advance. Usually that when people cannibalize others, they murdered them. I was trying to think of like a word that wouldn't like set off any red flags for anything I post this to, but maybe I'll just censor it, or I won't. I guess I'll find out. But usually people murder someone else, right? And then they're like, now I'm gonna eat you. Well, they're not telling them because they're dead, but thinking to themselves, doing a solo podcast and getting drunk in their room and thinking, I'm going to eat you. So they kill someone and then they eat them. But I don't know too many. I've studied serial killers a lot over the years for like 15 years. Serial killers, cult leaders, mobsters, things like that. A lot of them, not great cooks. It's kind of like your one thing is killing people, right? You just kind of have your own. Everyone has their thing. I play music. Some people kill people, Everyone has their one thing. So I don't think you could be like Gordon Ramsay and also like Jeffrey Dahmer, where you're just chopping people up, throwing people into fucking oil bins and shit, and then just chomping at them occasionally. So, except for there is a killer, Albert Fish, who That's a whole other rabbit hole I'll go into maybe another time. But he would like cook people, like cook people like a roast, and would put like vegetables and seasonings and shit like that. Like he loved what he did, respect to it. And that's the thing, like I think a lot of people don't consider that side of it. Are we delicious? Where's that argument? How do we really know? And also, it's like one of the big things is that from what I remember, it apparently it's like if you eat people as a people, it makes you crazy, I think. It's like cannibalism isn't like you're not supposed to usually eat your own species. Like that's why there's like the food chain, right? So lions don't eat other lions. Gazelle don't eat other gazelle. But we eat people, and it apparently, I think, like there's like a biological function where it kind of can induce like madness or like insanity, because I don't know what it is. It's just like about digesting similar components from a human, and then it like fucks up your brain or goes into your blood or some shit. I don't know. Whatever. You look it up. But maybe the problem is actually preparation, right? So stay with me on this, okay? Because I know this definitely sounds like a cannibal trying to convince you that eating people is super rad. And it's not. Well, not that it's not rad, but I'm not a cannibal. Which also sounds like definitely something a cannibal would absolutely say and be like, no, this is just a podcast that I'm starting. I'm going to start this whole recording over. I think I'm blowing it. I'm not a cannibal. I am a scientist in some way, a philosopher in some way, I think. So if you prepare a human correctly, I mean, as far as we know, what is the correct way? But that's why we find out, right? Due to science, like culinary science. Get someone, chop them up. Depends on what part you're cooking, right? You wouldn't cook, I think, like a thigh or a calf. I feel like you couldn't cook a calf the same way you would cook a thigh. On like a human? Ridiculous. Or arms. You wouldn't cook arms the same way you would cook legs. You know what I mean? Does anyone know what I'm talking about? So anyway, I think that we need to look into getting some sort of understanding, a better understanding of exactly how to consume people. Because I think right now it's the taboo aspect of it that's actually holding us back from advancing. And advancing to what? Well, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a lot of people that are starving out in the world. Pretty big world out there too. A lot of starvation, a lot of world out there, right? So there's a lot of people starving. There's a lot of people. I don't think you have to be a scientist to kind of figure this out. Not only that, but there's also a huge homeless epidemic, right? A lot of homeless people who are starving. A lot of people in other countries that are starving. Problem with overpopulation. I'm not going to point fingers as to what happens to certain people, but I think there's a solution. I think there's a solution that's being laid out in front of us. There's a lot of people, and there's a lot of starving people. And I think the thing that we need to figure out is who is going to the winner, like who the winners are, and then who the losers are, and then that the losers are going to feed the winners. Okay. I'm not going to go into more detail than that, but I think you can read between the lines. Okay. I think we need to figure out how to make people edible so it doesn't make us insane, and delicious because, I mean, I'm not going to eat food that sucks just because it's people. Like, if I was going to do it, hypothetically, if I was a cannibal and I was starting my own podcast to try to justify being a cannibal, I would definitely want it to taste good. Like, I'm not going to just eat people, just take little bites at, it's no. I want to enjoy it. I want to enjoy food, you know? Purely hypothetical. Okay, right? We can figure it out. I think we can figure it out. And there's a lot of these people that are starving who live in other countries, right? I've heard that United States of America, is a third world country in and of itself, in a way. I don't know. I don't know much about political climates or the world. Not because I'm not interested, but because I'm not smart enough, honestly. So, sorry in advance if you thought this was going to be like a huge political podcast. It is not, probably. But in a lot of these other countries that I know about, there's people that are there that have nothing. They're starving, and it's just not as easy as some of us have it here, you know? And one of the things that also bothers me about this is rich people coming from here to go to other countries to not help that country or those people, but instead like enrich their own lives, which is kind of strange to me. Because it's like, if you're going to another country, if you're going to another country to get like some sort of like cultural understanding, great, by all means. You don't have to be rich, wealthy in like a monetary sense to want to expand your understanding of a culture. But going to another country to make TikToks with these people, it's a little weird. It's like it's okay to not care about other people. I don't care about a lot of people, mostly because I don't know what's going on in the entirety of the fucking world. But I don't pretend to care, And there's a lot of people that go to a lot of different places and prefer to spend their time recording themselves, flossing, or grittying, or twerking, or whatever else with other people from other countries, and then they give them a few bucks, and then they're just like, cool, man, I really expanded my horizons. Which, I mean, cool. If you have the means to travel to I know if I was rich, I would definitely travel as much as I could. But at the same time, it's like, I feel like I'd give back. I don't know. I don't know if I would be, that's the thing. I'm not rich. I've never been rich. I've never been like super well off. I've never been like super poor or anything. Like I have a couple of friends who have like grown up in like really hard situations. And I know I've had like a really decent upbringing and was not like super well off, but by no means was like, it never felt dirt poor. My parents maybe were, but I never felt like it. If I did have the means, I would want to be like giving and give back to a lot of people. But who knows? Who knows if I became rich, I'd just be like, fuck these poor people. I really don't know. I like to believe that. I feel like all of us like to believe, well, all of us, assuming that you guys are also poor like me. Like I live in a house called the Crack House, if you guys know about that. So I feel like I would want to give back, but at the same time, like when I get my tax return each year, I don't make a lot of donations. You know what I mean? But obviously I don't have like a lot of expendable income, but I do go to Boiling Crab from time to time, and I get Wingstop sometimes. So, like, I could definitely be donating. I can afford to donate. But I don't. Anyway, let's change the subject. Also, if I was rich, I probably would donate, but at the same time, who knows? Maybe I'd be like these other assholes who are just, too rich to give a shit about whoever else. Just seems pretty cool. Seems pretty fair. If I was like Jeff Bezos rich, I probably wouldn't give a shit about anything. Elon Musk. Why would I, I saw one of those like Cybertrucks recently. They're fucking hideous. It's weird seeing them in person, because I think there's one person in the city I live in, or around the city I live in, that owns a Cybertruck, because I will see it maybe once a month, and it's weird. It's weird seeing it. I was at In-N-Out today instead of donating to poor people and whatever, who gives a shit. And I was in line, obviously. If you've ever been to In-N-Out, you're in line for like anywhere between, well, not 10 minutes. I'd say probably at least 15 to 30 minutes, 40 minutes even. So I'm in line, and there's a Cybertruck, and it's ugly as shit. Pretty weird. Anyway, none of what I said matters because I'm not rich. And like I said earlier, I didn't grow up rich. But one thing that I always thought was kind of strange was, or even now, like as an adult, because now, like I have like a pretty good job. I make decent money, like compared to, some other people I know, or whatever the case might be. Like I make decent money. And one of the things that I noticed is that when I was young, when I was a kid, I understood signs of wealth in a different way than I understand them now. Because now, I'm 31 now, I have a good job. Like I said, I have my own car, I have the crack house, and it's like, it's a different thought process than when I was, say, 8 years old, right? So you're a kid, and you have an understanding of what like wealth is. Like you should know by the time you're like 8 or 10. That's when you're like pretty cognitively aware, right? And you're able to tell like, oh, okay, well, I got dealt a bad hand, or I'm rich. I don't know. Probably some people have thought that. When I was a kid, there were things that I like, especially now looking back, like I understood a lot of it, like with my parents. Like I remember being a kid and thinking like, fuck, we eat like a lot of this thing all the time. And like, or like chicken and rice and beans a lot through the week or month. And it's like, I don't want to fucking eat this anymore. Like, why can't we get this? Why can't we get that? And my parents are like, shut the fuck up, man. Like, you get a job then. Why don't you go to the fucking coal mines or something, But being an adult now and understanding that chicken, rice, and beans is not only because I'm Mexican as fuck, but because it's cheap and it's affordable for like a family of 3, But when I was a kid, I didn't understand that. I didn't understand kind of like the gravity of like having to budget shit. It was just kind of like, why can't we just get this? So there's a lot of things that I had growing up in my head that it was like signs of wealth, which I've talked to different people about this, and I'm always curious about it because I don't think there's too many people that have had like drastically different upbringings than me. So I basically just have a lot of other middle or lower middle class friends. So, no rich friends is basically what I'm saying. So growing up, one of the things that I always thought was like a big sign of wealth was like bottled drinks. Like individual bottled drinks in the fridge. So like one of the things that I'd seen, my upbringing was like about, we had like the big like water things, like the big plastic water jugs, and then it's like you put it into like the actual like water dispenser, and it's like 20 cents a gallon, and you fill those big blue things up, whatever, right? And you flip it upside down and you put it into a little thing and it dispenses water, whatever. It's way cheaper than buying like bottled water, and it's like the, you know, gallons of water, and it's way cheaper than buying individual bottles of water, like Dasani 24 pack or fucking whatever water you prefer. That was one thing growing up, was like we always had like, it was like 2 liters of soda if we had soda. It was like those big, giant plastic containers of water that we refill all the time, and then anything like that, it wasn't like individual drinks. But then going to someone else's house, or like my nana, she's like 100, and she would have like Lipton bottles, like individual Lipton bottle tea. And I was like, man, she's got a lot of money. She also had like a big pool and a big house. It was really nice. It was really cool. My nana is fucking rad. But yeah, it was like if I went to like someone else's house and then they had like a cases of water that they just kept in their fridge, and like just like individual, like a bunch of like Lunchables and shit, or snacks. Like you go to someone's house and they have like a box of those like individual chips, where it's like Lay's, Cheetos, Doritos, and there's like a little snack pack thing. But it's like they just have that regularly, not like, oh, we're going to like an event, or we're going camping, or even if we went camping, it was like fucking buy one big bag of Doritos for the weekend. That's it. Make it fucking last. Those little like fun pack things. It's like that to me was like, that's what rich people eat. Rich people eat single serving fucking everything. Single bottles of Lipton iced tea, single little mini bag of fucking Cheetos, the Welch's fruit snacks, they got those. That to me was like a weird sign of wealth. And it was just because I didn't really have that growing up. So it's like if someone else had that who was also just kind of like, lower middle class or middle class, whatever. If you had that, then maybe I don't know, maybe you're doing better than me, or maybe it was just my parents didn't prefer it. I don't know. It was also like shopping at markets, like certain markets. All we ever went to was fucking Food for Less. I fucking hated going to Food for Less, dude. Even now, at my age now, I refuse to go to Food for Less. I fucking hate Food for Less. And I'm sure if I do go, I'll probably save money. That's kind of the worst part about it. It's probably better for me to go to fucking Food for Less. But I don't want to go to Food for Less. I hate going to Food for Less. It's just like, it's weird because it's like it brings me back to being like a little kid, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to fucking be here. This sucks. It's like a chore just being there and like helping with groceries and shit. And now that I'm older, I'm like, oh, I want to go. Like I go to Aldi, where I used to fucking work, because Aldi's pretty rad. Except everything you buy there goes bad within like a week, so that sucks. But whatever. Aldi and Ralph's and Vaughn's sometimes, and I was like, I'm shopping at the places that I never went to when I was a kid. And it's like, maybe I'm rich now. Maybe this is what it's like. Maybe this is what it's like to be rich. And it's not, because, I will occasionally indulge in buying these, like, the snack pack things. I mostly buy them for Noel, because Noel really enjoys little snacks here and there. He's like my kid. He's like my surrogate child. And also like my brother, but like my surrogate child mostly. I buy him Hot Pockets and, little single bags of chips and shit. And he enjoys it. He's fine. But yeah, weird signs of like, or understanding of wealth, I guess is a better way to put it. Because it's not necessarily that it's about being wealthy, but just that you're, your perception of it is a little drastically different. So who knows? Who knows if I would have had a different upbringing? Maybe I would have had a different perception of this. Any of you might have had a different upbringing, I'm assuming. And maybe you have completely different beliefs on this. Maybe you ate things completely differently growing up. Maybe you had snack packs all the fucking time and Lunchables all the fucking time, and you were also poor. Maybe it's completely different. But one of the biggest solutions, I think, to this crisis, because as of now, like I said, when I buy shit now, I understand kind of like where my parents are coming from now. Being the one who like buys groceries for the house and has to kind of budget all that stuff together and kind of knows like, oh, well, I knew like, okay, name brands. If it doesn't need to be the name brand, then why buy the name brand? Or like buying things in bulk, like even like the water bottles, like instead of buying like a big pack of water bottles, buying like at the crack house, now we have those big plastic containers, It's all very much understood now. I could get where my parents were coming from. I understand how to budget. I understand how expensive things are. And whenever I go buy groceries, it is expensive. So I get that part of it now, and I have like a better understanding, because it's the perception of when you were a kid, and now being an adult, you're like, I can afford this now, and I'm gonna fucking buy it. So like I remember getting Lipton bottles and putting them in my fridge, and I was like, this is what it's like to be rich. It sounds stupid too, which it is kind of fucking stupid, but it's one of those things though, when you're an adult and you have your own money and you spend something on something that you kind of coveted as a kid, and you're able to be like, well, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to fucking buy it. Like, I have my own money. I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. And you do it and you're fine. It's a good feeling. It all kind of circles back to itself. And that was one of the first things like I did, where I was like, I had this house and I bought shit I wanted to buy when I was a kid. And it was cool, Or buying like toys, like Legos. I still buy Legos. I fucking love Legos. And I'll buy them and I'm like, fuck yeah. I can just buy fucking Legos whenever I want. But the biggest problem that I find as a carnivore, as an eater of meat and meat products, meat's pretty expensive. That's why I think my parents were buying a lot of chicken, right? Chicken's usually pretty cheap compared to some other cuts of meat. So we were buying a lot of chicken, stuff like that, and it's pretty versatile. And now as an adult buying groceries for the house, it's like, man, just putting like a few trays of, various kinds of meat into my grocery cart, it adds up pretty quickly. You could easily buy like $100 worth of meat, and that's like, a big chunk of your budget. But what if it was people? There's a lot of us. Granted that we go through like thousands, millions, and billions, and whatever the number is. Put up the number. Just kidding. We go through so many chickens per year in America, and we also go through a ton of cows and pigs and all this different shit that we eat. But imagine if we factored people into the equation. Okay? So now we're back to this first conversation. I know that this isn't like, I wasn't just saying all this just to build up to this. Just kind of weird that it came back, right? Kind of circled back around and kind of all makes sense now. We're all kind of struggling, right? In our own ways. I think so. I think it's pretty safe to say we're all trying to save some money. We're all just trying to get by. But if we could eat people, it'd probably be a lot cheaper. I think it'd be a lot cheaper. I think it would be the smart decision to start consuming people. Also, like the legality of it, right? Because it's like, if you had someone who was like, I want you to eat me, and they recorded themselves and they wrote on a piece of paper, I hereby allow, I don't know, Greg Ramirez to consume me, to murder me and consume me. Shouldn't I be allowed to do that? I'm just saying. Like, I don't think, obviously this is all hypothetical. But if someone did that, and if someone allowed me to do that, I don't think I should be held accountable. This is purely hypothetical. I don't think I should be held accountable for eating someone. What if they, what if I didn't kill them? What if they were already, on their way out, or they on their way outed themselves, and they just wanted to leave me some groceries, essentially? I think it would be good. I don't think there should be, because that's happened before, where someone, I think it was like on Craigslist, someone like met up and was like, hey, I'm looking for someone. I think it was like, like someone was like, hey, I'm looking for someone to eat me. And someone was like, yeah, I'll eat you. And then they met up and was like, all right, like, how are we going to do this? And then I think he cut off like a little part of him, or like his pecker, and like fried it up and burned it, and was like, sorry, I might be confusing this with there's someone else, I think, that they cut their pecker off or whatever. I don't know. But basically, they had this agreement where it was like, I want to get eaten. And this other person was like, well, I want to eat you. And it's a beautiful thing, I think, mutually assured digestion. And they sorted this out, and this guy just kind of continued to eat this other guy over time, and then the police got involved. They came in, honestly, and fucked everything up. I think it was a pretty cool agreement that they had, because you can just, say like, oh, you can eat me. That's fine. Why is that bad? So like, in a legal sense, I think there's, obviously some other kinks to work out, but I think they should be able to be smoothed over. It's kind of like if you're like, hey, do you want to donate your body to groceries? I don't think it's a bad thing for you to be like, yeah, I'm down. I think you feed a family of 6. I feel like I could feed a lot of people myself. I think it'd be pretty interesting to see kind of how it's how I'm prepared as a ghost. I get to kind of stand in, and that'd be the only thing I'd want to agree on, is be like, well, I want to be delicious, and as a ghost, I want to watch you cook. I'll leave you alone after. I'm not going to like hunt whoever eats me, but I would prefer if I could be present at the very least, while the marinade is being made. You know what I mean? Because it's like the cooking, even if you kind of like overcook a marinade, you could probably get away with it, right? But it's like, if someone's putting some like really bad flavors together, I'm going to intervene. I'm going to start opening some cupboards, throwing some plates across the room, doing, ghost stuff. But I feel like it's like a win-win. Someone gets a whole meal, and at the same time, I get vengeance as a ghost, potentially. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it can help. I think you could go to the store, and you're like, honey, what do you feel like? What do you feel like eating tonight? Or what are we going to make for the week? Are we going to meal prep? They have, let's see, there's pork chops here. It's kind of pricey. There is some rump roast. It's going to expire in a few days, though. If we don't make it today, it's going to be bad. It's not going to, fish. Frozen fish is better. When they put it out as fresh fish, it's actually probably worse than the frozen fish, because the frozen fish, it's all frozen at the same time, but then they defrost it in the market. She doesn't care, but I insist on explaining it to her anyway. And then you're like, there's human thigh, though. There's a lot of it. It's pretty cheap right now. Maybe, throw it in the slow cooker for a while. or a smoker. If you're a cool dude, throw it on the smoker. You know, get a little crazy with it. Make your own barbecue sauce, maybe, with those extra dollars that you're saving now. Cooking human thigh, you could make your own barbecue sauce. You could buy a fucking smoker. Now, that was another thing I thought about growing up. I was like, rich people have smokers. Well, guess what? I have a fucking smoker now. And I'm not rich. And I'm not a cannibal. Thank you guys so much for listening to our very first episode. The very first episode of At All Hours. I appreciate you guys listening in. And hopefully you guys tune into the next episodes because I have some very fun guests lined up. Some great topics lined up. And more just, you know, it's more bullshit, I guess. But that's the outro music coming in right now. So I got to get out of here. Thank you guys so much for listening. Okay, bye.